Welcome to When Marriage and Purpose
Collide, the podcast.
So, babe, what is this podcast about?
Well, we have a story.
We do we?
We met online, got engaged a year later, and married 6 months after that. You know, happily ever after.
I mean, sorta. We're not perfect, but we want to give you a sneak peek on the conversations we have on a daily basis as we live life on purpose.
Whether you're single and dating with a desire for marriage, engaged, or seasoning your marriage.
Our discussions are centered around faith, purpose, and relationships.
Because when marriage and purpose collide, there's a new direction, new momentum that deeply impacted our lives and still does.
We're just inviting you along for the ride.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. All right.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. We back for another episode of When Marriage. Another episode of When Marriage
and Purpose
Collide.
The podcast.
No,
we ain't gonna get it right, but it's all right.
We're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it work today.
It's
but
fine.
listen, we're so excited for it. We got a lot of firsts. This podcast, this episode is going to be amazing. Yep. We actually have a guest here that we're going to introduce to you all later, but it's phenomenal because this is our first guest we've had on our show since we started this year.
Yes. This year. First season and this one.
First season and this one, yes, because this is our second season. So our first season, and I'm really excited. And so we'll get into that later. But as you all know, if you've been watching for this season, we started this segment called Something Interesting. And I said we were going to end up later on in life, we're going to put some like a little tagline or a little voice.
Still trying to figure it out.
Something interesting, you know.
Now you know. Oh, other hand. Now you know. There you go.
And basically it's just whatever happened this week, whatever happened in our lives, news, whatever. So, babe, you want to go ahead and start us off on the Something Interesting?
Well, not much happened this week, so we're going to start off with the movie we just watched and what genres we like.
What genres you said?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know this what you said. Go ahead.
So I'm a time travel action kind of guy, and she's drama, lovey-dovey.
Some comedy, romance.
Married at first sight kind of person.
Inspirational.
So I found a movie that had both of them, and it was called Needle in a Haystack. Was it?
No, Time Stack.
Needle in a Time Stack.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I don't know. Have you seen?
Never heard of that.
Okay.
Is it new?
It came out last year, I think.
Either last year or 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy that we gotta say that.
Yeah. All right.
It's 2022 already.
It's 2022 already.
So basically, it's about a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Is black people. Just want to let you know.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're over here lovey-dovey, the world has this whole like new invention where they can go back in time called jaunting. Yeah. Basically, they go back in time just to view the past. Mm-hmm. The thing is, you can, change it if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So the other guy, her ex-husband, ends up trying to attack them in the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that way, he goes back in time to try to change things so he could get her back,
mm-hmm.
because he feels that he stole her from her.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole time, the main guy, he's all paranoid. And I'm just gonna fast forward.
Yeah.
Basically, he's all paranoid. Dude gets his wife back, or ex-wife.
The guy that he would. The guy that was married.
He wakes up with the best friend. Then he basically leaves her, goes back in time, becomes single because he messed up the timeline, and then towards the end, he ends up finding his wife again. But it's supposed to be a whole love story, but it was slow.
Slow. I mean, it got me thinking, like, if we did have an opportunity to time travel back,
Yeah, actually, that would be the question.
It was illegal, though, right? Wasn't illegal?
It was legal to go back. It was illegal to change anything for personal gain, as far as like,
mm-hmm.
Trying to win the lotto or something.
Yeah,
like that.
That's right. That's right.
Which I still don't know how they would figure it out. You did that when you changed the time. How are you supposed to know that?
How are you supposed to know that? But anyway, it was just interesting to see that, you know, what you would do just to get fulfillment of the love. Like, because he was in his new life and he was single, but he still felt like he was missing something. And so it wasn't until he went to the party where he saw his wife, like from the time before the time travel happened, he saw her. He didn't know it was her, but he saw her and was like, oh my gosh. And you know, then the movie kind of faded away. So
it honestly, left a cliffhanger.
It was a cliffhanger. So if it was a scale of 1 to 10, this movie was like,
I give it a 6.
You give it a 6?
Yeah.
Oh, you like time travel though.
Actually, no, so... I give it an 8 because I realized she was an artist, the wife was.
Oh yeah. I like
so what happened every time I guess like it was like when he was with her, they'll show her art and it kind of represent what was going on at that time was between them. So the first one was what was the first one?
The first what?
Her first art was like a man and a woman, right?
Sure, I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was a man and a woman, and it was kind of like showing like they was like performing kind of like in a lovey way.
Yeah.
And then the other one was, and you was like, why are there 2 men up there?
I didn't know what was happening. I was so thrown off.
Well, there was 2 men doing like a live performance art, but it looked like they was fighting, and that kind of represented the husband going against the ex. Yeah, I was thinking about that today. I was like,
deep. I did not see any of the deepness at all, Jewel. Like,
I was too focused on the time travel, and then I thought about that. And then the third part was the man holding the little like a see-through blanket on the beach, but it was kind of like he was trying to hold on to something elegant, and that was him being single, trying to find the wife.
Any of that out of this movie.
She didn't see this coming.
Time travel is so like time travel bends my mind when you think about it. It's like a little bit mind bending because if I travel back in time, wouldn't just being there affect the timeline later? Because then they would, like experience something or see something or shift something just by my presence there. So it bends my mind a lot.
And that's the part right there, just our presence.
Yeah, that's like what it is. He traveled back in time right when his best friend and his other friend that he ended up was married to, whatever, to tell him he should be married to her instead, so he can have the wife. But the thing is, when he got back, and that's every time you go through the whole jaunting thing, you forget where what happened. So
what happened?
So he ended up being single the whole time when he came back. So yeah, you could change something, but you ain't gonna get what you want.
You ain't gonna get what you want, and that's the part.
So do you think you would do it if you had an opportunity to jaunt and time travel, just like in and that's what
I was about to ask.
I don't know. Like, I don't want to mess with. Like, it would be. I don't know. If it's just okay, if not maybe to mess with anything, but if I were to go back in time and visit, like see my grandmother, or like
I think that's what it was supposed to meant to be to go visit that moment, not to
mess with it.
And not to mess with it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
This isn't even my podcast, and here I am asking questions.
No. Oh no. I was about to ask the same question. I was about to ask how the premise of the whole movie, like if there was like waves of wherever jaunting, wherever it is that makes you forget your husband, but somehow you could still have remnants of it, would you go back in time to change time to be back with him?
I don't know. Someone asked me a question, like somebody asked me a question before, like, would I go back in time? I don't know. I just think like, I don't know. I think the way how things have been and the way how life has gone.
Sure.
I feel like every bit of it was important, So I don't want to go and shift anything just by being there, just by someone seeing me that shouldn't see me in the past at a time that I shouldn't be, I'm just thinking I would go and just my presence would throw the whole thing off. Then I wouldn't get to experience everything that I have been through, the good of it, the bad of it.
And that's the part, that's the kind of the part I'm kind of like half and half with it, so, but yeah, something interesting.
Sorry to drop that on you, but I was like, man, I've been thinking about that movie the whole time.
Anyway, oh my gosh. So yeah, that was our something interesting. So y'all, I am so excited to bring with you someone who I, first when I was, looking through who wanted to be on the podcast, she put her name in, and I was like, okay, there's a lot of people on there, but she stood out. Like, I was like, oh, and then I went and looked you up, and I was like, she needs to be on the podcast. Like, if anything, she needs to be on our podcast, because this is a subject that needs to be talked about. It needs to be held, like I said before, we deal with folks who are preparing for marriage, who are single in their single state, and who just want to be, want to see what it is. What do I need to get there? What do I need to work on myself? And so first, let me just go ahead and just say, hey, welcome everybody for here today to our podcast is Jewelle Maynard-Roberts. Did I say that right?
Hi. Yeah, you're
okay.
fine.
I was like, should I say Maynard? Like,
hello, everyone.
Yes. And so I'm gonna read her bio, because once I read her bio, y'all gonna be like, oh snap. Okay, so we got a real one. Oh, yeah. On this podcast today. A real one. So we have here, says Jewelle Maynard-Roberts has a love for translating her quiet, God-inspired journaling into multimedia messages. Using her gifting as a writer, speaker, and artist, she has written and shared online devotional series for women via social media. Rescue Me, The Lifeline of Forgiveness is her first published book based on one of those series. She is the founder of The Precious Project, an online resource for women aimed at helping women discover their identity, worth, and value. I'm here for that. Okay, I am here for all of that. She also supports her husband in his role as a pastor in the Church of God, Barbados, and partners with him as co-founder for their community outreach foundation, the Rescue Foundation. Y'all give it up for Jewelle.
Hi.
I'll try to add claps in there.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem.
I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. And I'm so excited. Like when I read the bio, I was like, man, we have to speak offline, on this, because it's so many things that I feel we both kind of have, similar aspects to. And so I'm just grateful to have you here today. We're grateful. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm all in the zone. Forgive me. We're not. We're grateful to have you. So we're always you're our first guest, but what we're going to do so anybody else who's listening later on, we have 3 questions that we ask our guest to the show to share with you. And so the first question I want to get your thoughts on is marriage and purpose colliding. Really, what does that mean to you? We have our meaning, but really, what does that mean for you? Take us away.
When I thought about that question, what came to mind is that our ultimate purpose as people, as individuals, is to live a life in relationship with God. Our ultimate purpose is to worship God, to chase after him, to pursue him, to desire him with all of our heart, our mind, our soul, with everything that we've got. So the first place that we have to start is our purpose is to find relationship with God. Before we pursue marriage, before we do anything else, that's our first point. That's the first place we come to. And then when we're in that relationship with him, it's a place of communion. It's a place of fellowship with God. It's a place of hearing from him. And he downloads to us those things that he wants us to do. He gives us those assignments. He says, this is how I want you to operate in the world. And he can give us insight before we are married as to what our purpose is. And I think we have to find that out for ourselves through that relationship with him before we even begin to think about marriage. That should be a part of our thinking. And as we enter into that marriage relationship, then we are continuing in that relationship with God, continuing to seek after him, continuing to hear from him as to how he wants us to function jointly as a couple, how he wants us to step out into the world, operate in the world, and operate in purpose. So I think it all starts with the foundation of the relationship with God and making sure that we are in communion with him. We're in the secret place with him. We're fellowshipping with him, hearing from him, and everything else flows out of that. That's how we will get that collision of marriage and purpose.
Come Collision of Marriage and Purpose. That's our book. Collision of No, and I think you hit it on the head as far as being able to be in communion in that secret place with God. And I think there's people that think of purpose, and there's people that think of marriage, but they don't think of the relationship with God. That's neat. It's like that middle ground, it's kind of like on that journey. It's like, oh yeah, I can do me all day, what I want to do each and every day. What my plans are, what my goals are. I'm gonna keep doing me, but then they forget, which I was telling somebody yesterday, is what we tend to do is we compartmentalize where God needs to be in our lives. So when it's time for, when you're thinking about dating or marriage, what we tend to do is we just, God, you don't need to be right there. I got my finances in order though. But purpose is everything. And it's really purposeful in everything in our life before that. So I appreciate that answer. Yeah. I didn't know if you had anything.
Oh no, mine is for the men's side is we have to put God in front of us instead of beside us or behind us when it comes to, bringing marriage in too. So if God's in front of us, we can, have him lead us, show us, so we can lead our family too, instead of having him on the side of us thinking, oh, we right here, and then try to have your wife in the same. No, it's not going to work. Somebody's got to be in front of you, and that's God.
There you go.
Yeah. Completely agree.
It's like a car, like you're sitting in the car seat, and then I get in, you get in, and then who's driving them? Kind of deal.
Yeah.
Like you gotta allow the control of God to kind of have it.
You're gonna put that car in neutral.
Okay, you always gotta go there. The next question is, and there's a reason why I decided to have you on, but you can tell us, is what compelled you to join this conversation and this platform?
Yeah, I really think that speaking to persons who are about to enter into marriage on the topic of forgiveness is so important. Forgiveness has so many levels, which we'll probably get into in the conversation a bit later down. But that whole topic of forgiveness is so crucial to them being able to function effectively, not just in marriage, but in life. Unless it's something that we address, as hard as forgiveness can be for us, unless it is something that we address, it can really inhibit how we function, how we show up in the world. And I think it's really crucial for those who are contemplating marriage, who are thinking about marriage, trying to get themselves straight and ready for marriage, to think about the topic of forgiveness of God, themselves, and others as well.
Yes, I can't wait to jump in when we get to jump in, because I'm ready. So the next question is, because I was gonna say something, but that we're gonna talk about it. What are your thoughts surrounding the current state of singles and dating nowadays? What you've been seeing?
Now that I'm not a single or dating, I'm only getting like what I hear my friends say who are single. So this is secondhand information, but I'm hoping that it's accurate.
Go ahead.
But most of them are kind of like, where are the men? Where are the good men? Where are the men that are chasing after God? Where are the men that are seeking purpose? Where are those guys? I think that's the challenge in Christian circles sometimes. In some church environments, you have more women than men. And I think that's a struggle, at least for the friends that, the ladies that I interact with, for a lot of them, that's been the struggle. Where are all these good Christian men who are really chasing God? I think they're out there, but I don't know. That seems to be a big struggle.
Yeah. You got anything to say about that from the men's perspective? Or where the men at?
I just feel a lot of them been hurt, so they're a certain way right now. So even if it's hurt from church or hurt from relationship, they're dealing with that internally. So that's what
I think what you're saying is valid, especially where you're talking about hurt from the church and how the church connects with men. I think sometimes it doesn't connect with men as easily as it connects with women, depending on the structures, depending on the history of it and everything. So there is definitely that issue.
Yeah. And when the women I speak to, I always say that because it's the common thing. What you said is on point. The common thing is where are they at is to continue to still pray for the men out there.
Yeah.
Like, I
definitely.
think sometimes we feel like to pray is so grand because there's so many men out there. You're like, but where's mine? Why I gotta pray for all men? But you should be praying for the men, the ones especially who are in the faith, the ones who are in church, to be brought up to be leaders and to actually be a future husband. Those who are desiring to be, that is, to be a future husband, so that not only they can, my friends, I know they can, but a friend of a friend. Like, let's not be so selfish to where we can't pray for other people in our lives to also get their future husband, because when I'm blessed, you blessed, so
yeah, it's so true.
So anyway, I appreciate you for answering those questions. So listen, I want to know about the Rescue Foundation. I want to know where this came up about. Like, first, I'm gonna be honest with you. I first see the name, I was like, what they rescuing? Like, what is this? A puppy? Something got going on. But I started reading. I was like, oh, I get it. I saw the logos and everything. I was like, I get it, y'all. Y'all have to check it out. We'll give her we'll give you all the information she will share. But check it out. You'll see what I mean by it. But yes, tell us about the Rescue Foundation and where and how that started and sparked. Yeah.
Definitely. So a while back, my family and I, we went through a lot of interesting experiences, a lot of tough experiences in a really short space of time. It was pretty intense. We lost about 8 members of our family. My son was born prematurely. Of those members of our family that passed, they included my dad and my husband's dad passed as well. We had job losses, car accidents, all kinds of things happen in a very short space of time. If I were to tell you the story, it would probably take up the whole interview. So I won't go into the whole story. It's all in my book. But we went through a pretty rough time, and coming through that, going through that period and having to struggle and juggle with the emotional fallout of that trauma, all of those things that you go through and having to process all of them. And for me, I came to a point where I didn't feel as though I had processed everything effectively. I came to a point where I felt the weight of all of it, because all of these things happen over a period of a small amount of years in a short space of time. And it was like if everything sort of crashed on top of me. Yeah. And it really was a crisis point for me. And that was where God began to show me my need to forgive him, forgive myself, forgive others, to help me address some of the trauma that I had been through, some of my experiences from the past, the distant past, as well as the more recent things that had occurred. And coming out of that, I wrote the book, Rescue Me, The Lifeline of Forgiveness, because that's how God does it with me. He's like, you need to work on this, so write a whole book about it. Okay.
Man.
Write a book about it.
I understand. I get it.
So he led me to write this book and to go through a process of examining my own self, examining my position with him, my position in relation to others, my position in relation to myself, and really coming to that place of healing and restoration as it related to everything that I had gone through. Wow. And then coming out of that in a time when we were praying, this was like the end of 2020, when we were really praying to God about purpose and about vision for the future, because we were in the pandemic. 2020 was that pandemic year, all the shutdowns, everything shifting and changing. And you really wanted in that season to be in alignment with what God was doing. Yeah. As opposed to just doing things for the sake of doing it. You just really, really needed to be in that position of being where he wanted us to be. And we spent some time praying, really praying about that. And God downloaded that he wanted us to start a social enterprise called the Rescue Foundation. And what it would do is to provide crisis support to our community by enhancing food security on the one hand, and then on the other hand, access to interventions that help to promote mental and emotional wellness for individuals. So that's the mission of the Rescue Foundation and what it seeks to do. It's still pretty young. We were incorporated just earlier this year. Wow. So we're now rolling out our first program, which is a pop-up shop
Oh.
It's a food assistance pop-up shop. So the idea is that we provide for persons who qualify for the access based on their situation. We provide access to a shop that will have a combination of free and low-cost items that those individuals can come in and be able to help reduce their grocery cost, help increase their food security, help them to take care of their families in a less expensive way. The cost of living in Barbados has escalated since the COVID situation, since the start of the war in Ukraine and so on. So it's really tough for a lot of people, and we're trying our best to present something that will help our community and help them access that need, that support that they need in times of crisis. So that's what it's all about. And that's our first project that we have. Actually, our first pop-up shop is going to be Saturday coming.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Congratulations on getting that started. I know. And wow, that is a handful of information as far as your story of loss and restoration, and then coming to, and this was before 2020, right?
Coming into, before and coming into 2020. Yeah.
Okay. And coming into 20, and then to have 2020, okay. Come, and then it's like wreck with us, all of us, our minds and everything, and then to come out and birth something new, which is all about in your purpose and all what you're doing. And I'm so thankful for what God was doing, because I don't think a lot of people knew how big it was, and to see the light at the end of the tunnel with this. Like it was so, I felt like it was such a dark place for us, a lot of us, and we were shown, for me, I was shown so much about myself during that season.
Definitely.
During the pandemic. And so, and that's when I wrote my book and was able to, get that.
Wow.
And so I think it was a season where we were just sat there like, no, sit down. Sit down. The people.
Everybody sit down. Pretty much that's what God was like. Everybody just sit down for a minute.
Sit down.
Sit down. I need your attention.
Yes, I need your attention. And to see that this was birthed out of from your pain, from your loss, and then also just from what God wanted to do, and to see the impact you're making in the community. Like, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I applaud you all for doing that out there where you are, because it's needed. There's a need. And I feel like what it is once you see the need and it's a pull and it's a tug, that's when you kind of make that move. A lot of people are like, can I, should I, how do I know? If it's been pulling, tugging on you, and the Holy Spirit's been like knocking at your door of what you can do, God will provide the resources to get it going. So,
and you have to run. And when he says run, you have to get up and go. Because for this, he said run. He said run. Just do it. We did ask a lot of those questions, like, Lord, how are we gonna do this? But just so we ran with it, and
that's good.
This is where we are now. So making progress.
I can't wait to see the goodness that's coming out of that, so that we can see how well it does for the people out there. All right. And so you kind of answered this in the beginning, but you could probably go more in depth with it here. It says, the question is, as we seek to encourage and prepare men and women in their single season, right? Like, we want to make sure that like you talked about alignment, and that they're aligned with God, that they're in communion with God. How important is forgiveness and healing? Like, I feel like we're in a state to where people are now getting to the part where they're like, I need therapy, or I need to go to therapy, or I need to get this healing thing. But I still feel there's still a core group of people who are still like, I don't need. Thank you for tuning in to When Marriage and Purpose Collide, the podcast, with your hosts, DJ and Lucretia. And we hope you enjoyed our conversation and advice. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch the latest, you can follow Lucretia M. Haley, that's LuCretia M. Haley, on Instagram, and subscribe to Cree Speaks Life on YouTube. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.